I've had a few messages asking me when I'm going to go back to Fallout 76 and continue playing, and the answer is I probably won't. Not anytime soon anyway, and I thought I'd make a quick video explaining why. Don't get me wrong, I was quite pleasantly surprised at how much I was enjoying Fallout 76 after I returned to try out the Wastelanders DLC. Myself and Quarico were having fun overall. The addition of NPCs and quests, though, was the crucial element, the thing that really did make it. It made the place feel a little more, well, a lot more alive when there were people we could speak to, stories that we could interact with, and of course quests that we could do. And it wasn't just the Wastelanders DLC side of things that we were enjoying. We tried we tried 2 events, and like the Fashion Act one was actually a ton of fun. We were kind of enjoying exploring, and overall the game just seemed a lot more polished, a lot more stable, and you know, it ran reasonably well and the fights were kind of fun. So it was an improvement from when I first tried it during the initial preview phase. Although I will say, the interface is still really clumsy in my opinion. There are many parts of it that just feel a little off, non-standard in ways that just don't seem to require a non-standard approach. But that's a minor quibble. That and the fact that you still can't rebind keys properly, which still, I just don't even know. I really can't. I mean, key rebinds. How you fail at that is still beyond me. But minor things like that aside, overall it was a positive experience until we began to realise that the quests in the Wastelanders DLC really don't work very well in multiplayer. It starts out when you realise that whenever you go into an instance, you are only really doing the quest for the leader. So you go in and do whatever you need to do for the leader, and he gets the update, but no one else in the team does. So with Quarico we had to go back out and then change so she was the leader, then go back in and do the quest for her. And obviously if we had 4 people, we'd have to do each instance and each part of the quest 4 times. Or, as we ended up doing, we just went in separately. So we travel around the wasteland together, and then when we got to where we were going, we just go in and do our own thing, all the time chatting to each other and discussing what differences there were, and oh, I'm going to try saying this, and oh, I'll try saying this, which meant we were experiencing 2 different stories together, which utterly destroyed any sense of immersion whatsoever and made it feel pretty ridiculous, to be honest. I mean, it just it completely, well, I wouldn't say completely destroyed the fun of the quests, but it more or less negated any advantage to having these quests in this game, because doing quests like this for NPCs with a friend, to me, seems to be the point of a game like this. And this problem extends outside of the instances as well. If you meet somebody out in the wilderness and you need to get something from them, so for example, we needed to try and get a password from an NPC so we could get into this base without having to fight, I had the charm to get the password. But Quarico couldn't share that password with me. She didn't have the charm to get it from him. She had to have the same conversation right next to me, and she couldn't get the password. We then had to look around to find it for her, but we couldn't. So in the end, we went to the base. I used the password to get in, but she, the person with me, had to use a stealth boy. And everyone was hostile to her. And it gets even weirder if you go into an instance where everyone's hostile to one of the people. They'll attack the person they're hostile to, but they'll ignore the person they're not hostile to, and allow you, the person who's not getting attacked, to actually join in the fight, kill them completely safe, without them ever becoming hostile. Everything's just wrong. As far as I'm concerned, in a multiplayer game like this, if you're doing a quest and you're both on the same quest and you both do the same objective, it should update for both of you. If you're having a conversation and you get a password by charming someone, both of you should get that password. And I know people are going to say, but what happens if... And then they're going to come up with some minor problems of how that would work. What happens if you're on different stages of a quest, etc, etc, which are all valid problems that need to be solved when doing multiplayer quests in a multiplayer game. But that's what you have to do. You have to solve the multiplayer problems that occur for multiplayer quests in a multiplayer game, like every other multiplayer game does. That's it. You have to look at it. You have to design the quests in a certain way. You have to come up with ways to handle all of these little problems that people will throw at you. Plenty of other games have done it, and I'm sorry, but you should be able to do multiplayer... Well, you should be able to do quests in a multiplayer game whilst being in a team, a multiplayer team, because that just makes sense. And I'd go further and say that the dialogue system, which I do like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not downing on the Wasteland DLC completely here. The dialogue system, to me, was actually an improvement over the Fallout 4 dialogue system. I like the direction they've gone with regard the lists of dialogue. I prefer that to Fallout 4. So, you know, I'm happy to see that's the direction they wanted to go, but I would have actually added a few more things to dialogue in a multiplayer environment. For example, if the leader, which was me at the time, has got the charisma, I can do charm. But if there's an option that, say, requires intimidation, strength, and one of my team members has got tons of strength, I should be able to select that option too, because they're in my team. That would promote cooperation between the team for people to sort of, you know, specialise at different aspects. You might have the charming leader, then the strong right-hand man who intimidates people, and so on and so forth. You would diversify your skills and be able to use them all from your team in each conversation. Again, this is not a particularly difficult thing for them to solve. They would have to, you know, they'd have to code that, they'd have to make that a thing, but it's not a completely out of the question suggestion. Now, there are some people who are going to say it's unfair of me to judge the Wastelanders DLC from a multiplayer perspective because it was meant to be played single player. And I know this because someone already has. And the argument is, well, the Wastelanders DLC and its quests are supposed to be done single player and events are supposed to be multiplayer. Well, for a start, I do not remember them advertising the Wastelanders DLC that way. I do not remember them marketing this as this is for single player only. This is supposed to be done single player. I don't remember any hint of that. But even if there was, and even if that is a reasonable thing to expect in a multiplayer game, I'm not interested. And you know, that's I have to judge a game from my perspective, and I was interested in playing Fallout 76 with my friend and seeing what the Wastelanders DLC was like. What was it like to play a more traditional Fallout experience with quests and NPCs with a friend? That's what I was interested in. And if that's not what Wastelanders DLC is aimed at, then I'm sorry, I'm not interested in it. I'm just, it's not for me, it's not my thing, and thus, I will not be playing it, because, you know, as I've said, I only really wanted to try it in multiplayer, and that's it. Now, I know this sounds like I'm downing on Wastelanders DLC an awful lot, and I really don't actually want to, because, as I've said a few times now, I actually see the Wastelanders DLC as being a positive step. To be honest, it's a step that should have been there when the game released. I think it was a mistake on their part to assume the players didn't need NPCs and wouldn't want quests. I think that was a big mistake. But it's nice to see that They've understood it was a mistake and they are attempting to address it. So, you know, it's a positive step. It's just not enough of a positive step at the moment to make me want to continue playing. And in the end, that's what's important. Do I want to spend money and time on a game? And the answer for Fallout 76 right now is no.